Welcome to Tiny Game Chronicles episode 50, Michael.
Woo.
My name is Marcus, and here with my good friend Michael, every other week we discuss games that are quick plays but epic journeys. It is great to see you today, my friend. How are you doing?
I am well, Marcus. Quick update on the weather report. It's been raining the last 3 days. And man, we've had such a heat wave these last weeks. I really welcome the rain. I'm hoping that the Rhine fills up a little bit because a lot of the ships can't travel on the Rhine anymore. So a lot of the goods that they transport kind of need to be transported by rail and by road. And obviously that has a lot of challenges, right? So I'm really welcoming the cooler weather. And Marcus, although nobody will know, but we're recording a little bit early. In a few days, in 3 days, we're off to Normandy for 1 week. So I'm looking forward to going there. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Have you ever been there before?
Once before we traveled through to visit Rennes, the city where my wife studied.
Okay.
I've never seen so much dog poo on French streets as
Ringing endorsement. Yeah.
but yeah, it's a kind of student town, and I enjoy France. Unfortunately, I'm not that good in the French language, but my wife is, and so here we are at the coast. We're taking our dog with us. It's about a 5.5 hour drive from here, and I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a well-deserved week where we just have a little bit of a break and change of tapestry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I do have a question for you
Yes.
as we get started here, Michael. 50 episodes.
Hey.
50 episodes. Who'd have thought?
That's crazy.
I wanted to ask you, what are some highlights, or do you have like a favorite moment from our first 50 episodes?
I mean, it's 100 weeks, right? If we think about it, right? And 100 weeks is like, okay, I don't think that I ever thought, well, I didn't have a limit to when we started. And I think one of the highlights is really just having an appreciation of indies in all different shapes that they come in. Specifically also our shape, which is the shorter game form. I don't think that I've ever would have had the opportunity to be exposed to so many games, because I think before, if I just count the amount of indies that I played versus AAA, I think AAA would be prevalent. And now obviously that has turned around. And yeah, Marcus, the fact that I have you as a colleague that I can discuss these games with has really been beneficial. To watch us both grow in enlarging our perspectives, our thinking, in debating, in discussing, what really touches us about these games. So I think, to say it short, my life has changed because of this experience, right? So I'm learning how to express my thoughts, which usually is an internal monologue all these years before, and are now slowly but surely finding, in brackets, imperfect voice, but are finding a voice. And God willing, I'm wanting to continue to do this, right, until all my hair is gone. So we'll see, right? So, what about you, Marcus? Any highlights from your side?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I'm going to be quite as eloquent with you, because I would agree with what you just said, but I do have maybe some more I don't know, practical
Specific.
ones as I want to do. I really love it when we get some interaction from the developers that for the games that we cover. So a big highlight for me was one of our first episodes, Michael. We had done Venba, and the lead developer, I'm blanking on the dev's name now, but
Canadian.
he had Canadian developer, yes, you bet. He had mentioned that he had listened, and that we had pointed out something on the show that nobody had ever brought up before. It was about the blue mask that's present in the game. So that was really cool. I thought so that was definitely a highlight. And then the other highlights are the guests, our friends that we bring on.
Yeah.
Some people are good friends, before we bring them on. Some people have become good friends after we brought them on. One that will always stick out for me is their first guest appearance on any podcast. So getting Cole, aka the Good
It's true.
Sir, on to talk about a musical story was a big highlight for me. So yeah, but having all of our friends kind of come on is always great. A little bit more effort to edit those episodes, Michael, but definitely worth it, I would say.
Yeah, and we'll continue on this journey, right? So this we'll continue getting on good friends, guests, colleagues on the show, and invite them to maybe go on a similar journey as we have, right? And hear about their thoughts, their impressions on the games that we play. Yeah, so we still have a short list of people that we want to bring on, and we're going to see how we can make that
list
happen.
keeps getting longer and longer, though, Michael.
I know,
so many people.
Looking forward to it, though. I'm looking forward to
absolutely. It. Okay, Michael, before we get into our discussion today about our game, which I haven't mentioned yet, the game that we're going to be talking about today is Two Falls, Nishu Takuatshina.
Yeah.
I had practiced that ahead of time, Michael, and I did a much better job than I just did right now. Nishu Takuatshina.
Perfect.
I'm just going to go Two Falls for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, all good.
Anyways, before we talk about Two Falls, I did want to mention our previous episode was on Wabi Sabi Sushi Derby, a very light, I would say, racing sim. I'm not going to call this a racing game, Michael.
It's a racing sushi
racing
sim.
Yeah. So so I thought we had a really good discussion. I was coming into that episode, maybe not particularly fond of the game, and I think I grew some fondness as we hashed things out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the more innovative games out there. Definitely one that deserves a visit. But it is light, right? And as I said, as you consume your sushi in real life, right, it is over within 20 minutes or so. Obviously, the game is a little bit longer, but very innovative in its ideas, in its approaches. And I really do hope that aliens don't fall in love with sushi like they did in the game. Right?
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, Michael, let's get into our discussion about Two Falls. Two Falls released on PC on November the 8th, 2024, and then it also came to PlayStation and Xbox in May of 2025. It was developed by a developer out of Quebec by the name of Unreliable Narrators in partnership with Indigenous creators. In Two Falls, you play as characters, and it takes place in 17th century Canada, where you play as Jeanne, a French settler trying to start a better life in the colonies of Nouvelle France, and Maikan, who is an Innu hunter who is trying to find the source of a disturbance in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Gameplay is mostly like a walking simulator with some dialogue choices. The developers refer to it as an interactive drama.
Mm-hmm.
Your choices shape your character's traits, which impact future dialogue options. Mixed reviews on OpenCritic, although it didn't have all that many. It's sitting at a 70 on OpenCritic. And I think like it only had like 4 reviews that were counting towards that score. So 3 of the 4 thought quite highly of it, and then one kind of brought it down to that 70 range. So
must be a settler.
Probably a settler. Okay, Michael. We start these conversations out by asking ourselves 3 questions. What platform did you play it on? About how long did it take you to beat? And what are some high-level thoughts you have about the game?
So before I start playing a game, I always quickly Google where this game should be played on. So what is the better console or environment to play it on? So Google told me, hey, stay away from Steam, on the Steam Deck, I mean. I think you did play it on a Steam Deck. We'll probably hear from you how that experience was. I decided to stick with PC. It took me, Marcus, 5.5 hours, and that's a combination of note taking about the game as well as kind of reading the codex. I did not finish the whole codex. We'll probably go into why in our discussion a little bit, and I would summarize it as a short, atmospheric, historical narrative that makes colonialism. This is really about a specific era in Canada's history. Kind of feel very personal, and it involves cultural elements, environmental elements, as well as it has a lot to say about faith. Um, Kind of like what Indica did to a certain extent, power, belonging, and maybe also reconciliation. And if I were to give this an alternative title, I would say Two Falls. It's about conversion, colonization, and having two perspectives on history. So that's my top line thoughts, Marcus. What about you?
Yeah, so as you suggested, I did play this on Steam Decks. It is not a verified game, but it is listed as playable on
Mm.
Steam Deck. Um, I would not recommend playing it on Steam Deck. It has some issues there. So part of that is my fault because I just don't like playing on PC. I'm not sure. I think this is a fairly resource heavy
It
game, so
is.
I'm not even sure if my computer would have run it all that well had I chosen to play it there anyways. But nonetheless, it's not a great Steam Deck experience. The frame rates are really low. I'm not a frame rate guy, Michael,
Mm.
but it was very choppy at points while you're just
Okay.
walking around. So that was a bit distracting. It took me out of the experience a little bit. Ran into a few technical issues where dialogue wasn't loading properly, or yeah, a few other things where it just like after having paused the game, it kind of restarted at a different character, and it shouldn't have.
Mm.
So not the best technical experience. Again, part of that is my fault because I knew it wasn't going to be ideal, but like um it was probably worse than I would even expected, and it did take
Okay.
away a little bit from the experience, I would say.
Yeah.
It took me about 4 hours to beat. Um, Part of the issue, I think, like for me, was like I happened to be. This is a bit of a side note, but I was solo parenting this weekend, so we have a little guy at home who's 5. So I was trying to get these sessions in on my Steam Deck while I'm
Mm.
watching our son, and so I had to pause frequently, and I think that my actual Steam clock is I close to 6 hours, but like I'm having to pause and then you're leaving it on for a little bit, and so that may have contributed a little bit to
Mm.
those technical snafus as well. High level thoughts. Uh, this game is a bit of a mixed bag for me. I think
Mm.
that it's a very important game. I really appreciate and respect the collaboration that the developers had with the indigenous community that are represented in this game. I think that's really good. Um, I think kind of the broader, bigger picture story and the setting, these are all like really important. Some of the actual like I think implementation of it,
Mm.
the some of the writing, the dialogue kind of didn't always hit for me. And we'll probably get into that as we, do our deeper dive
Tend to do.
discussion.
Yeah.
But so it was a bit of a mixed bag. I think I appreciate the game more than I enjoyed always playing the game. So maybe leave it at that
Yeah.
for now, Michael.
Yeah. All good.
Okay, so a couple of things. Brief reminder about how we talk about games on Tiny Game Chronicles. We like to identify 3 things that we think stood out about a game, do a deeper dive discussion on each of those 3 things. And again, we look at our standouts as things that we're going to remember about a game, a year or 2 down the road. So it could be good, could be bad, probably mostly good stuff.
Mm.
And then most of the time, we'll do so here. No spoilers. This is a pretty narrative heavy game, so we definitely will we'll set things up. We'll talk about the overall context, but we're not going to get into specific narrative beats of this game.
Yeah.
So if you haven't played Two Falls, you're safe to listen to this episode. Okay, Michael, let's get into our standouts for Two Falls. The first standout that we wanted to discuss was really the main gameplay mechanic
Hmm.
of this game. We haven't really talked about it all that much to this point, but there are narrative choices that the game presents you with. And one of the things that they talk about in a lot of the promotional materials is like these narrative choices affect your character. You're kind of like creating your character and how they'll react in this situation. And so every time when you're in a dialogue kind of scenario, you're given if you're given a dialogue option, you're given two choices, right? You're given two choices, and you can pick one of your responses,
Yep.
and those responses will affect like a trait that
Yeah.
your character has. So, like Jeanne, who is a French woman settler, faith is a big
Hmm.
part of her life. So like some of the responses may be more kind of like coming from a religious perspective, and then they will affect kind of like this her dogmatism.
Yeah.
Dog
Dogmatism is perfect. Yep.
Yeah. And so like how did you find this system uh, within the game?
So, Marcus, I think you described it pretty well. We start the game by playing Jean. I mean, no major spoiler. You would need to start with one of the two characters
Yes,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
have, right?
Yeah.
um, and I found it difficult to play her, because immediately after I selected my first dialogue choice, a pop up came up, and I'm just going to reveal what it says. It says Jean has become more dogmatic.
Right.
And I kind of think, well, thank you for putting me in that drawer. I
Right.
really appreciate it. And I actually did feel a little bit misunderstood with regards to what my intention was in the context of the choice that I had to make. So it already kind of put me, I think, in a frame of mind with regards to, okay, is this game about now? I don't know. Is it about to put me into various drawers I don't want to be in? Um, and I think had the game not revealed that to me, my enjoyment of it might have been a little bit different. I think, and I'm quickly ask you in a second. But the fact that it was not legible or transparent with regards to what did that axis or that meter look like. What were the polarities that the game was working with, whether I would be, I don't know, dogmatic or liberal. That wasn't always visible to me, and so I think the issue where I did not understand how much agency do I actually have in forming the traits of my character. um Yeah, and so as I said, I eventually got used to it, but it's a question that I did find the initial feedback that the system gave me actually disturbing. So because I'm as my life philosophy goes, Marcus, one shall not put people in drawers, right? Don't judge, with regards to without trying to understand. And I kind of felt like, okay, now I was being judged for decisions that I made. How was it for you?
Yeah, I think you've hit on a few of like the aspects of the system that I didn't really vibe with or really
Mm,
understand. Like maybe to illustrate a little bit for the listeners, this is, it has shades of the Mass Effect,
yeah,
Paragon Renegade system of
correct.
dialogue choices, right? But the difference, there's a few differences. Like one, there are traits that you aren't necessarily aware of. So there's more than one, right? Like there's
Correct.
this kind of
There's
dogmatism.
more than three.
Yeah, and so like, but you don't know which ones they are,
Mm,
and you don't necessarily know ahead of time when you're being presented with a dialogue choice which um trait it even is going to affect.
correct.
It you don't know, like, at the end of the day, what once you've made a decision and it's impacted that trait, what actual like effect downstream that has.
Mm,
Presumably it's changing the dialogue options a little bit. You know,
mm,
the developers have said as much. But to what extent, you know, what options did I, you know, was I locked out of
mm,
because I chose what I did choose? I
mm,
really don't know. Like how much color am I could I change? How much of these characters based on the choices that I made, it's really difficult to tell, which I
mm,
don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but partly because I think, and I think this is the simple change that I would probably have made or would make if I was the developer, is I just wouldn't put how my decision affects like what trait it actually impacts. Like
mm.
I just don't need to see Jeanne
100%.
becomes more dogmatic
Yeah.
after the choice that I made, which didn't even necessarily the dialogue choice didn't, as you were you know saying, didn't easily map on to Jean
No,
choosing a
no.
more dogmatic choice.
100%.
And so like you didn't necessarily make that connection before you had to make your dialogue choice, and then you get a sentence that says what the actual impact was, and then you don't even really know how that choice like impacts what your character is going to experience going forward, right? So there's a lot of kind of like confusion around it, I think.
Mm,
And if you just didn't have that statement, Jean becomes more dogmatic. I think that would alleviate a lot of the confusion around it. It would just mean, well, I'm guessing I'm getting different options, but I don't necessarily understand. I don't need to understand how it's affecting these traits that are in the background, anyways, right?
exactly.
So,
Exactly. And also the statement, Jean has become more dogmatic, for me is a negative statement, right? First of all, right? So for me
right,
personally, with regards to how I see the world, and now
right,
I'm playing the game in a way that I'm thinking, okay, whatever you answer, make sure it's not dogmatic, right?
right. Yeah.
Right. So it takes you a little bit out of that mindset or that role play because you're wanting to form at least your ideal image picture what that character should be like so that they are likable and represent the role that you've given them, whether that reflects you or a specific role that you've given them in your role play. Yeah, and so I kind of felt that, as you mentioned, you getting feedback on the choices kind of undermines your agency and
Yeah.
your sense of freedom, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it would have been much more helpful not to reveal that. Yeah.
I'm just not sure what it adds by knowing these things, like by telling the player which trait it's affecting. Like, what does that help me? Because it turned you off, like in
Yeah,
terms of being kind of referred to as a dogmatic. If you didn't want to play her as being dogmatic, and
a
you
hundred
you
percent.
find out that the choice that you made her more dogmatic, and it's like, well, I didn't even really want to do that. I didn't know it
Mm,
was going to do that.
mm,
Now I've
mm.
made a choice that I shouldn't have made, and then you don't even really know what the outcome of having made that choice ends up like being. Like I just remove that all
A hundred
completely, and I think it
percent.
would have, yeah, I think it would have
Yeah.
made for a better experience.
As I said, the context is that I met John at a very emotional state, and I just wanted to add some more pragmatism to her actions. I mean, that was the kind of goals I
Hmm.
was going for. And okay, being pragmatic and being dogmatic are two different things, right? So, um, mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I wish I would have had a different start in when engaging with Jean as my character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, you know, to kind of maybe put some positive, it's nice to be able to play a game, you know, and this isn't unique to this game, but like
Hmm.
having different dialogue choices that present themselves based on your previous responses. I like that
Correct.
idea, right?
Correct.
It's just maybe the implementation of this didn't always work, or I think I shouldn't even say didn't always work. It didn't work.
Yeah.
For me, at least, in terms of like what it was giving, the information that it was providing me didn't really enhance my experience.
But I do feel, because we did discuss offline, that our characters had, in the latter part of the game, different outcomes or experiences, or also maybe different dialogue options. That choosing a specific option either opens up the potential of relationships that are possible to have, or also cancel them, right? So the fact that there might be enmity, right, develop between the main protagonist that you encounter, or a bond. And I found that very interesting. So I think making the, in brackets, right dialogue choice does impact, not necessarily, as you mentioned, the broader narrative, but definitely the interrelational aspects between protagonists slash antagonists, right?
Yep.
Mm.
Okay, Michael, let's move on to standout item number 2. And we wanted to talk about the historical accuracy, or at
Mm.
least the historical importance that this game plays on, the setting and the narrative that it's telling, right? We don't often get stories, I would say in media in general,
Mm.
that are told from, two very distinct perspectives as they are here, like
Correct.
a settler, a colonizing person,
Mm.
and an indigenous person, right? And so we're often playing, through these separately. So you take control of one character and you get a section of their story, you take control of another character. So that's how you're playing the game, and you're getting uh a lot of different, ways in which that story is being told. One
Mm.
of the things I think that we wanted to talk about, because I think they did a really, really good job here, is that you mentioned a codex. So there
Correct.
are codex entries that help to explain what the character is experiencing, and some, internal dialogue that the character might be having, but also some historical context and a historical information about a particular, setting or animal or
Mm.
person or things like that. And I think that is really, really well done. Probably one of the strengths of the game.
You took the word out of my mouth. The fact that this is perhaps one of the, if not the strongest part of the game, the fact that it has a codex for you to read, um, not only the historical setting, but also the meaning to maybe the various cultures, or even part of history, as we are playing through the game. So you're not, even though this is a fiction story, this is fiction. It is kind of based on real historical happenings,
Yeah.
and I think the fact that we both play Jeanne and Maikan, and we observe, or both observe, the same setting, the same land, very differently. They have a very different relationship to the forest, to nature. Um, they have a very different knowledge with regards to what it means to belong. So the one is really kind of the settler conqueror mindset, and the other one is, hey, I'm a part of this land. And so there is a very different relationship and understanding towards risk and towards power. And I think here we also see an unhealthy expression of power and colonialism, one that we often don't read or don't get exposed to in history books. And I think
Hmm.
that's why this codex is so important. Now, Marcus, as we discussed in Standout 1, every time you go through a specific part of the narrative, there will be a pop-up informing you that a new codex is available, right?
Right.
Which is great, and I appreciate the fact that it's a reference for me to go deeper if this aspect interests me. The unfortunate aspect, and gosh, I don't want to sound too negative, but through the specific pop-up information, there is a friction that happens in the game, right? So those entries immediately come, and the momentum of the story breaks because of this pop-up. Because now I'm kind of torn. I'm curious. Am I going to go read what that codex is and then go back to playing the game? And I played. I think the game has 7 chapters, as far as I know,
Yep.
right? And I
Yep.
played the first chapter by kind of going to the codex, going back to the game, going to the codex, going back to the game, and I felt that that was a very unsatisfactory experience, and I could not be really immersed in the story the way that I wanted to. I'm not sure, how did you deal with this specific challenge? Because the end result was, I always said stuff. Well, I know the codex is important, but let me finish the game first.
Right.
Only then to discover, gosh, there's so much stuff that is here. It's gonna take me a while to read through. How did you go, or how did you deal with this specific aspect, Marcus?
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, and I think like this isn't the first game to
Yeah,
like as you're progressing through a game to say something has been added to a codex or to
yeah,
an encyclopedia or some sort of like repository that you
yeah,
have to access through like the start menu or something.
yeah.
So lots of games do this. I would say for me, I almost completely ignore that in other games. But part of the reason I didn't here is because they're so well written. These are
Yeah,
really, really
absolutely.
interesting. And so, like, for the most part, when a codex entry popped up, I paused the game and I read it because it was really good and it provided really great context for whatever it was that we were talking about, whether it happened to be like a
Mm.
location or a
Historical
person
fact. Yeah,
or even just yeah like lots of really cool information and talking about I liked because there were two sections to each codex entry, right? There was like
correct,
what is it, how does this codex entry affect that character whoever you're playing
correct.
as at a certain time, and then there was like the historical
The history,
context. Yeah,
100%.
and I
Yeah, loved
really
it.
love the history part of it the most, right? Like it was really neat to be able to see like, oh okay, like this is the context of this plant to
Hmm.
indigenous people like this like the what was it, Labrador tea as an
Yeah.
example. I grew up in northern Ontario in Canada, so not too far from
Hmm.
you know well it's pretty far, but like the same part of the world, let's say, of
Okay. Okay.
we could when we would go camping, we have the Labrador tea plants that we could
Hmm.
make that when we went camping.
Hmm.
So like understanding kind of like and getting the perspective of like the importance of those to the indigenous people of the region. That's really interesting to me. Like I really like that. And but yeah, there is that tension though, as you suggested,
Hmm.
between like okay, I want to focus on the story and not continue to get interrupted, I guess, a little bit
Hmm.
with these codex entries. So, I mean, I mostly read them as they came up, but sometimes I would, if it was like a moment of the story that I just wanted to see through, I would wait, and then it would be like, oh, okay, uh, I would, you know, 2 or 3 codex entries down the line, um, I would see which ones I hadn't read yet, and when
Yeah.
I went back into it, and then I just read like 3 of them in a row or something like that. So I was kind of giving myself a bit of a break from reading the codex entries. There's not that many, but at the same time, there's a decent amount, right? Like
But there is
there's probably
exactly.
yeah, which is good in terms of like providing extra context and historical information, but like it has the potential to interrupt your gameplay experience. Um, the other thing I really wanted to talk about in terms of like this historical accuracy piece is the fact that this game, we've mentioned it already, involved indigenous creators
Correct.
when making this. I think that that's super, super important. Um, that's not something that historically, a lot of people creating these stories have always done. Like to the point where like this game was signed off by like a council of Innu and Wendat elders from the
Hmm.
indigenous communities. Like
Yeah.
that's a level that media should do, but historically has not done. So that I definitely want to applaud them because they're at least bringing in the perspectives of the people that are being represented, or at least some of the people that are being represented as characters in this game, right? And that's super super important. So I really want to applaud the devs for taking that extra step because they didn't have to, right? They didn't have to, and so like to be able to kind of include that, I think is a really really good thing that
And
the
I
game
think
did.
this is something that's really missing also in our educational system. The fact that, when we are exposed to history, and I really used to love history per se, but I think that I was too young back then when I was in school to really question whether the facts that we were being presented to be on paper were actually the facts, or whether these were just written out of the perspective of, the dominant nation per se. And for me, having lived in my teenage years in South America, the fact that the South American indigenous people were conquered by the Spaniards per se,
Hmm.
um, it is interesting to see that we learned the history not just from a Spanish perspective, which is probably used in all major school. Always the victorious nation is the one that writes the history, so to say. But to really hear about the monstrosities, the suffering that indigenous people went through, it's like, I mean, to take it to modern day, right? When we talk about Nazi Germany, I mean, it's clearly um, um, uh, gosh, the word is escaping me. Give me a sec. I think it is clear with regards to what happened during World War II that this is kind of written out of an Americanist perspective. It could be written out of a French perspective. But how often do you actually hear the story from someone living in Germany, how they saw the war from someone being German, being ruled by an extremist, so to say, who Hitler was, and also how the nation, the normal German worker, how they actually suffered under that extreme Nazi regime. This is not really a story that you hear, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I think it's important. Um, if I had a wish that if we ever have history lessons, that we actually are presented with two perspectives, right, on a specific happening, a specific account, so that we can form an opinion with regards to, well, what is it? It's like, I don't know, it's like if you only watch CNN the whole day, you'll only get one perspective. But if you, I don't know, watch Russia Today, not that you should, right? But maybe an equivalent of another perspective reporting on the same happening. I think you need both perspective to kind of form your own opinion with regards to what is happening, what is propaganda, and what might have elements of truth. Sorry, that
Yeah.
was a little bit of a rant, Marcus, but I think it's important for us. That's why I love the aspect of two falls. Two falls translated means two autumns. But for me, also, you need two perspectives, right, on a particular happening.
Yeah, I see kind of like where we're at in terms of the clock, but like I guess like I think the historical accuracy of this game like is absolutely like a big strength,
Mm.
but I would say that that's more like bigger picture stuff, like the overarching
Yeah.
story, kind of the bigger things. Like there were some of the things maybe to get a little bit negative, Michael,
Let's do it.
on this thing is the specifics of some of the dialogue felt almost out of place to me, and actually didn't feel like it was all that historically accurate. I'm going to give one example.
Hmm.
So we have our two main protagonists, but there are other characters that are featured prominently in the game, and one of them is Pierre. He's a fur
Hmm.
trader, and he's a rough kind of like gruff sort of guy, but like Pierre dropping f bombs. I don't know how historically accurate that is, and
Yeah.
it took me out of it, like in terms of that dialogue choice. And there were lots of other examples like this, just using words that felt out of place and out of time a little bit. And so that, while I think the historical accuracy of the game overall is definitely a strength, there were definitely some issues with kind of more the micro
Yeah.
within the game. Like some of those dialogue choices didn't feel quite historically accurate or accurate to the person or the thing what we're seeing on the screen.
So some of the things, I'm totally with you, Marcus. Some of the things could have been modernized, but it does feel a little bit like, well, I don't know, you're going to be using the F word for a children's story, right? But kind of written for a younger audience, right? If that kind of makes sense. Marcus, and if you are going to use the F word, please put a French spin to it, right? Pierre is French, and you can't say a fucking American way if you're
Yeah.
using it. But I'm teasing.
Maybe that was
it's-
part of it too. That maybe that was just part of it, is that Pierre is a French, fur
Yeah.
trader, and
Yeah.
it felt so out of place
Totally.
in coming out
Totally.
of his mouth. Like it,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so there were lots of other examples, but that's kind of like maybe the one that really
Stood out.
stood out and really kind of didn't sit great with me. In an otherwise like real strength of the game, maybe that's part of the reason why these things stood out too, because it did feel a bit disconnected from everything else that we were experiencing in this regard, at least.
Let me ask you this. Was the writing in the codex and the dialogue as we experienced in the writing of the dialogue itself, did that feel different quality-wise in any way?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I thought the quality of the writing in the codex was exemplary, like really, really good. And that wasn't always the case in terms of the dialogue. And now I don't know if I have no idea if those are different writers. It kind of felt like maybe it did.
Okay.
Maybe it was just some people are better at writing, factual information versus
Yeah.
dialogue. And
Yeah.
maybe that's part of it as well. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I don't want to be too critical in this regard, because I think the bigger picture stuff was done really well. It was maybe some more of that smaller, more micro writing that wasn't as strong, let's say. Okay, Michael, let's move on to standout number 3. So we wanted to talk a little bit. We haven't mentioned it all that much to this point. There is a theme of like faith and conversion that is present within this game. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about this theme without getting into, narrative specifics. What did you want to talk about in terms of like the faith conversion that we see in Two Falls?
Well, I think the fact that faith plays an important role, I think it's already clear right from the beginning. Perhaps a mini spoiler. Jeanne has a Bible that she picks up pretty early, and I think the Bible played such a central role in the telling of the story, and also the faith that comes into the specific era. And we find out that Jesuits are at play, so obviously another important role, another important figure. And the core thought here is that faith becomes entangled with the authority of the colonizers, if that makes sense. Something that I wasn't aware of, but the game addresses beautifully is the aspect of gender hierarchy, also out of a faith perspective. And that conversion and colonial expansion go very closely hand in hand. And Marcus, this game made me think of another game that we played, where we had a woman struggling with her faith, and that was Indica. If you remember, very different stories, but also two women that are constrained by the institutional power with regards to how they live out their spirituality and faith, right? So yes, it's a game that perhaps shows the darker side of the negative aspects of a power that is misused and misrepresented to follow an agenda of a European power who measures success by the amount of conversions they have in a foreign land. And I think this was incredibly upsetting for me, to the one aspect, because faith was used to control and dehumanize the indigenous population that was there. So yeah, and I'm even kind of choked up as I'm talking about it. Yeah, Marcus, how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, this probably speaks to our previous standout a little bit too, like the historical accuracy of, the portrayal of faith and the importance of faith
Yeah.
at that time. Like, faith played such a bigger role in people's lives, at least, in Canada, than it does today, just on a population level. Like, the idea that Jeanne would be very devout, at least at the start. It depends on how you choose to play
To
her,
role play her,
like
yeah.
how that progresses. And that Maikan would be very spiritual, and his faith in, indigenous practices and beliefs would be super central to who he is as well, and how those things can come into conflict. And
Correct.
particularly in this, like, colonization sort of environment where there is, as you had suggested, like a motivation by the European settlers to convert these savage indigenous people and their, uh, the beliefs that they had, who colonizers believed to be backwards and obviously, quote unquote, like false. And they, how many of those colonizers had good intentions, how many of them had less good intentions, and there, all of that is tackled and explored
Well
within this
documented as
game.
well. Yeah.
Well documented, yeah. From a, like, it's something that obviously happened, right? Like,
Correct.
these are the types of things that happened. And I think that this game actually does a pretty good job at exploring those motivations and how these concepts, these belief systems, affect the actions that the characters have, right? And do within the game. So I think that, that is a compelling aspect within the game, is this portrayal of an individual faith and how that might be challenged when presented with different perspectives.
I think it clarifies and highlights maybe the differences between religion, dogma, faith, and spirituality, if I can use those terms, right?
Sure.
Because they mean very different things. Even though then they're also misconstrued. I mean, I first of all was truly shocked with regards to how disempowered females were when it comes to dealing with scripture or even allowing to read the Bible, right? So, yes, it's historically true, but the fact that it was considered sinful for a woman to read the Bible definitely does send shockwaves, with regards to, whew, okay, well, that was a man-made law, wasn't it? Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, Michael, I think we can wrap up our deep dive discussion there. We did get a community standout from our good friend
Yes.
Slugcat Stu. So I'm going to read out what he had to say about Two Falls. He said, I love Two Falls' mode of storytelling, and it has such good heart. Interestingly, it could be described as a didactic game, but the lessons it teaches are expansive and open minded. Tolerance, and the wisdom to know what not to tolerate, cultural understanding, but not uncritical cultural relativism, the dangers of religious dogmatism, and the importance of critical thinking, and finally, the ambiguity, but not radical indeterminacy of
Hmm.
culturally specific truths. In short, it is an open and kindly form of didactism which will annoy all the right people.
Can you translate for us, please?
Stu is very articulate and very eloquent.
Very
He's
good.
kind of like yourself, Michael. But yeah, I mean, we would agree. We've touched on a lot of that
100%.
stuff here too. So, thank you, Stu, for writing that in. We really appreciate it.
That's
And yeah, some really great thoughts there. If you, dear listener, want to have your standouts read on the show, you can play the game and then hop into our Discord and share your thoughts on the game that we're playing. Michael will do a call out, usually at least a few days before, in our Discord and on social media, to let us know that to let you know that we're recording, and you can share your standouts in our Discord. Okay, Michael, we're here to wrap up the game now, and we ask ourselves one question at the end of these things: do we recommend the game, and if so, to whom?
so. I would say, first of all, a big yes, because even though we had some issues, I really think that this game is worthwhile playing. So a big yes. I would maybe score it a 4 out of 5 with regards to the message that this game has. Maybe even a 4.5 with regards to the message. With regards to the technical aspects of it, definitely a little bit less. But I'm just going to go for the intention here. So if you like contemplative games, historically informed fiction, which I think is really key. If you want to get deeper around the discussions of colonialism, belief, maybe also indigenous representation, what this game has, as well as questions of morality, I would say definitely this is a game for you. This is not a game for you if you're looking for puzzles and, I don't know, kind of mechanical depth, because it seriously doesn't have it. It is a walking simulator to say. Its strength lie in the atmosphere, in the cultural intent, and the conversation value, like what we had here. And this is not to a big extent, not a replayable game, because I don't think that the story beats per se change. It could be interesting if your interactions change depending on how you form your character traits on the decisions that you make about your two main protagonists. What about you, Marcus? Would you recommend it? Well, I know you would not recommend it for
Not
anyone
recommended on
having a Steam
Steam
Deck.
Deck. Yeah, so I would not recommend playing this on Steam Deck. Would I
Yeah.
recommend it in general? I think that this game uh is very well intentioned, and
Mm.
it kind of tackles some issues I think that are really important. I think the execution is not always there. And so I think that is it worth playing? Yes. I'm glad that I played it.
Mm.
Was it like always like an enjoyable experience? Did I always like love every aspect of it? I think
Mm.
that's probably a no for me on that.
Mm.
But I do think it's important, and I'm glad that I played it. So it's a tricky one. I felt like this was a little bit the case with maybe the last couple of well, at least with Wabi Sabi as well.
Mm.
It's a tricky one to kind of quantify whether or not I recommend it, because
Mm.
I like that I played it. I think that it's touching on some really important things. I think just some of the execution is not always leads to like a great experience. And this is aside from my issues on Steam Deck. Like this is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
those narrative choices that we've talked about. Kind of some of the dialogue I didn't feel was written as well as I would have liked.
It could have.
Yeah, and so I think that I would put maybe forward a very tentative recommendation, kind of knowing some of those caveats ahead of time, because I think that the intent and kind of like the bigger picture stuff is important. So maybe I'm just coming to that conclusion right in this moment here, Michael. I think that I would give it a recommendation just with those limitations. Go in with understanding that there are going to be some aspects of the game that you may not vibe with, but I think the overall experience is worth probably pushing through some of that stuff, because it is valuable and important. And it's not something that gamers frankly get very often.
100%. I think that's why it's important. Marcus, just remind me, is it available on consoles as well?
Yeah, PlayStation and Xbox.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think that's probably a decent option for folks. I actually haven't looked into its performance on those platforms, but not Switch though. I suspect, like as we talked about this being a fairly intensive game, like requiring some pretty reasonable specs. So that might be why it's not on Switch, to be perfectly
100%.
honest. Yeah.
100%.
Okay, Michael, that's it for episode 50. A little bit of housekeeping before we wrap things up here. Of course, we would really appreciate it if you shared, liked, subscribed, and left us a 5-star review wherever you happen to be listening. Aside from that, you can follow the show on Blue Sky at Tiny Game Chronicles. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Marcus O'Neill 79. You can also find me on the 2 other podcasts that I do, Fantasy Critic, Hype Factor, a Fantasy Critic podcast. That's a monthly show that I do with my good friend John 32. We're actually recording tonight, Michael. I've got a second recording today.
Okay.
So you can that episode will probably be out before this one. So I'm gonna divulge the title of that one. Whoever's following the show will already know what it is. We're talking about whether or not you should drop or hold certain titles that have yet to come out this year. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would I think you've got a few of these games on some of your fantasy teams, Michael.
I have Ocarina of Time, and I don't know whether I should hold on to it or not, because our community does not allow reimaginings. So so we'll see. And I'm not sure whether it's a reimagining or a remake.
Right.
I have no clue. Nintendo hasn't been open about it. So it would be a definite 90 score, I think. I don't think Ocarina of Time will score anything less than a 90 plus. But let's see.
Yeah. And then the other podcast that I do is called BFAM, Brothers from Another Mothership, that I do with my good friends Ron, Matt, and Quag. And it's been a little while since we've done a new episode, Michael, and it's going to be a little bit while longer because Matt has decided he'd rather go camping than record as our original plan on
talk about priorities.
I know, priorities, right? So we're going to push that next episode back a week. So anyways, if you're interested in that, stay tuned, because an episode will be coming in the not too distant future.
Very good. Yeah, hopefully he's taking some physical games with him.
He must be, right? How else would he be playing anything? He doesn't do digital, that guy. So, Michael, where can people find you?
So you can also find me on Blue Sky under Drellesh, DRELLESH. I'd love a hookup or a follow. Alternatively, also you can find us on our Discord community, our small but great Discord community. Link will be in the show notes. And Marcus, we are also at least we are writing at least once a month, right? For So Many Games on our website, somanygames.co.uk. And I think you're up for the next article. I'm not going to divulge which one it is. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, but it will happen hopefully within the next few weeks. No pressure, Marcus.
I think it will probably be out by the time this episode
Okay.
releases. So I will link to that in the show notes. We are also on YouTube, Michael.
Yes.
So if you want to catch our video episodes on YouTube, largely unedited, we will post those on YouTube. And we're also doing shorts. So we usually have one short per episode. So if you want to see our handsome faces, you can catch us on YouTube and you can like and subscribe over there. The last thing we need to do, Michael, is introduce our next game.
Dun, dun, dun.
So this one was released on March 31st, 2026, so earlier this year. It is the first game developed by, I'm going to mispronounce this name, Kakareko Games.
Yeah.
In it, you sneak away from your boring family vacation and delve into ancient ruins. Borrow equipment from dead explorers and uncover the secrets of a lost civilization as you leave your parents worried sick.
It's not Uncharted, but
the name of this game, Michael, is
Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this one. I think I've delved in about 20 minutes. And it is quite enjoyable, Marcus. I think this is a game that you will particularly like. At least that is my prediction. Let's see what we think about it when we meet each other again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so this is like I think it's a Game Boy Color. I think I had read in the description like a Game Boy Color style action platformer, Metroidvania, I guess. I think they're considering it a Metroidvania, but it's like 2 or 3 hours long, which is usually not the case for Metroidvania. So it's very bite-sized. Very fitting that we chose it, I suppose. But like it looks cute. So I have not started it yet, but I will be probably loading it up in the next few days or so. And excited to talk with you about it in a couple of weeks.
A disclaimer, it's not cozy.
Not cozy. Okay.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, Michael, I think we can wrap things up there. I will just end things by saying thank you for listening, and we will be back in 2 weeks with Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.